You are sitting in a building. The fire alarm is screaming, smoke is curling under the door, and you are still finishing your coffee. Not because you are brave, not because you are stupid, because your brain has decided, without asking you, that this is fine. This is not a metaphor. This is a documented psychological pattern, and it has killed more people than any single fire ever could. In 1985, a researcher named John Leach, started studying something that made no sense. Survivors of sinking ships, burning buildings, collapsing mines, not the ones who escaped, the ones who stayed. He found something disturbing. A large percentage of people in fatal emergencies did nothing. They sat down, they kept working, they walked in slow circles, some even tidied their desks, not because they were in shock, not because they had accepted death, but because their brain had entered a state Leach called cognitive paralysis. The mind, overwhelmed by conflicting information, simply stopped processing the threat. It works like this. Your brain receives a danger signal, but the signal does not match anything in your experience. You have never been in a burning building before, so your brain does not trigger fight or flight. Instead, it triggers something worse. It triggers wait and see. This is why people stay in collapsing systems, not just buildings, governments, companies, marriages, economies. The alarm is ringing, everyone can hear it, and nobody moves. Look at the fall of Constantinople in 1453. For months, the Ottoman army surrounded the city. The walls were cracking, the supply lines were cut, and inside, the wealthy citizens kept hosting dinner parties. They rearranged furniture, they debated theology, they hired new servants. Because the alternative, admitting the world they knew was ending, was psychologically impossible. There is a term for this in disaster psychology: normalcy bias. The mind assumes that because things have always been fine, they will continue to be fine, even when the evidence is screaming otherwise. Normalcy bias is not ignorance. It is not denial in the clinical sense. It is a deep mechanical failure of imagination. Your brain literally cannot build a model of a future that looks different from the present. So it rejects the data. It smooths the edges. It tells you the smoke is probably just fog. And here's the part that should make you uncomfortable. The people most likely to stay are the people most invested in the system, the ones who built it, the ones who benefited from it, the ones whose identity is wrapped so tightly around the structure that leaving feels like dying. In 1912, on the Titanic, first-class passengers were significantly slower to board lifeboats than third-class passengers. Not because they were cowardly, because they could not believe the ship was actually sinking. Their whole framework of reality, wealth, status, control depended on that ship being unsinkable, so their brains protected them from the truth. This is the dark irony. The more you have to lose, the less capable you are of recognizing that you are losing it. Cognitive paralysis also explains why people stay in abusive jobs, toxic relationships, corrupt institutions. The exit is right there. The door is open. But leaving means admitting that years of your life were wasted on something doomed, and the brain would rather sit in the burning room than face that grief. John Leach found one more thing. The people who escaped, the ones who moved, the ones who broke through the paralysis, almost all had one thing in common. They had practiced leaving, mentally. They had imagined the worst. They had run the scenario in their heads before it happened. Preparation does not just give you a plan, it gives your brain a category. A file labeled, "What to do when everything falls apart." Without that file, the brain has nowhere to put the information, so it discards it. This is why dictatorships fall slowly, then all at once, why companies go bankrupt months after everyone knew they were dead, why marriages end years after the love was gone. The system does not collapse when it becomes unsustainable. It collapses when the last person in the room finally stops pretending. So the next time you see someone sitting calmly in a burning building, do not assume they are stupid. Assume they are human. And then ask yourself, very quietly, which room you are still sitting in.